Hi everyone, I will wait another minute before kicking off because I know I'm meant to start at 10 to 6, but I'm always a little early. So there is a Q&A open, so if anyone has any questions at any point, you can post them and I will hopefully leave time for questions at the end. Okay, it's now officially 10 to, so thank you very much for joining me, and for anyone who's watching this at a later date. You guys have kind of a big decision on your hands, and hopefully this will help you answer the question that's on the screen, and that what A-levels are you going to do? And hopefully it might also give your parents, if they're watching with you, some kind of comfort in what you might be studying. So I'm here to talk about Media Studies A-level, and first off I need to clarify, mainly for any parents who might be thinking, but also for any students, it's not easy. It possibly was easy until about 5 years ago, in which case they changed the A-level completely. It's now very comparable to English literature in terms of the difficulty and kind of the level of content expected. So the question that I got asked by my Year 11 class today, what is Media A-level like? Well, it's pretty much like English. Most media teachers also teach English, but instead of books, you study all of the texts that are on the screen now. You also study unseen texts. And instead of writing an essay for your coursework, you make media products. We will touch on that a little bit later on, but just to give you an idea of what kind of the whole presentation and the whole A-level is like. So when you're thinking about picking your A-levels, you're really asking, what is important to learn about? Well, I've broken this down into what I could think of. So do we learn about power and money? Are we looking from a commercial aspect? Do we look about things that have happened in the past and what we can learn? Do we look to learn about what makes us happy, or our ability to understand the world? Hopefully, if you choose media, it hits all of those boxes, and I will take you through why now. So how do you know what to think about? How do we decide which news stories are important, which ones we should worry about, which ones we should care about? And how do we decide what to worry about every day? And this is something that when you study media, you start to be able to answer. So I was looking through this weekend's newspapers in preparation for tonight. And I found it really interesting because I had all of the newspapers' front pages open. Daily Mail talks about COVID boosters and how they'll affect your travel. The Sunday People talks about pregnant mothers getting the COVID jab. But the Daily Star tells us that we should mainly worry about what's happening on Strictly and behind the scenes. So we decide what's important when we look at the newspaper front pages, but they all tell us something slightly different. And then I looked further afield. I was like, right, what are we told, or what are Americans told is important according to their newspapers? Well, the Wall Street Journal tells us that the economy is super important, but also has a slight touch on social media and Facebook. And there is, if you look really closely in the bottom corner, there is something about COVID. But when we went to a more local New Jersey newspaper, it was all about COVID. So we're told what's important in very different ways by different publications and different owners. And then I moved even further afield. I thought, I haven't done this before. I looked at Chinese newspapers. I wasn't really surprised by what I found, but I found that they pretty much universally had news stories praising the government. And they all had the same, presumably government-approved photographs on. And maybe that tells you a little bit about who controls the media and what everyone is being told to think. So that kind of shows you a little bit about some of the text you might study and how important and how impactful media is every day. Think about how many times a day you consume the media. So how many times a day or a week even do you look at the TV? Do you have the radio on? Do you play a video game? That includes video games on your phone. So if you're waiting to pick someone up and you play a match 3 game like Candy Crush, it includes that. How many times a week do you watch a film? And how many times a day are you impacted by advertising and marketing campaigns? It's probably hit a high number already of times a day that you use the media, but what if I include social media and the internet? Everyone is consuming the media multiple times an hour, unless you're in my lessons, in which case. So, in A-level media, I expect you to learn how one of the most influential factors in your life works. I heard this today with my year 12s. Facebook listens to me. I mean, my example is, otherwise how would it know I wanted to buy a kettle? And we went into a quite detailed discussion about how Facebook doesn't listen to you, but it does track you, and it tracks your friends. And through this algorithm, it can predict a lot about your life. And then we look at power. How influential is the media over the power in the world? Well, in 2016, Donald Trump was elected the president of the United States. And that 18% figure shocked me. 18% of voters on exit polls said they got all of their knowledge about who to vote for from social media. Now, the election was not really decided by an overall percentage because Clinton got, I think, about 2% more of the vote than Trump. But 18% just on social media. And of course, Trump was far better at that than Clinton. Of course, he used Cambridge Analytica to harvest data from Facebook to target voters and fundraisers. Who was behind this? Well, a guy called Brad Pascal, and he ran something called Project Alamo for the Trump campaign. They raised $250 million through Facebook. Facebook is not free. The data that you provide through it is worth a lot of money. Brad Pascal, kind of success story, even if we don't want to admit it. He got paid $1,500 to make Trump's first website. That's how he got involved. By the end of Trump's campaign, he'd been paid $94 million with company. And he knew that Facebook was how Trump was going to win. He talked to people via Twitter. We all know Trump was very active on Twitter, but Facebook was how he won because it was how he could raise money and target people. So by the 2020 election, the Democrats had learnt. Joe Biden announced Kamala Harris was his running mate on Twitter. So they suddenly became kind of acknowledged the power of social media. Of course, that's in America. That's not going to influence us in Britain, is it? Well, if we think back to the referendum, who voted leave? Well, the demographic that voted leave the most, 45 plus, C2 and D demographic, that means kind of skilled manual and unskilled manual labourers and people less likely to be employed. But also, these are people who hadn't voted before. They weren't registered to vote. So how would you get them to vote? How would you communicate to them? How would you get all their contact details? Well, you run a free betting competition. And those are the odds. I can't remember what number that is. I think it's a septillion. So 1 in 5 septillion chance of winning. All you had to do to enter this amazing draw based around football was give your name, your contact details, and how you intended to vote in the referendum. So they had all your data by offering a free competition. The root of this is marketing has changed. I've really been thinking about marketing recently because it showed me how much I didn't know. And here's an example that the parents will remember. We should recognize this slogan, of course. It's Pringles, this logo, sorry. And this is the 1996 Pringles commercial that I remember. why have I shown you a commercial from 1996? Well, I saw something on social media and it made me think, so I looked into it. That's kind of what we do in media. That commercial, 1996, to play in the UK, the highest rated commercial channel was ITV. The highest rated show was Coronation Street. The peak number of viewers it got was 19.8 million for a single episode. That's a lot. To advertise in that episode, with the advert you've just seen, would have cost Pringles about £200,000 for that 20-second one-off advert that could have possibly targeted 20 million people. So when I say marketing has changed, I'm a media teacher, I'm pretty up to date. I go to YouTube. Well, Pringles in America, they can put a video up and get 22 million views. Didn't cost them anything, apart from the price of making the video, which is probably the same as it was in 96. So you get 22 million views just on YouTube. Isn't that good? But of course, the students watching fully understand YouTube's so out of date. If we look at TikTok, Pringles have used this really well. They set up a more viral campaign where users would generate the content for them, share it, and it would go worldwide. How many views do you think the Pringles account has? Yeah, Play with Pringles has about 4.8 billion views. So people are making these videos and circulating them without it costing Pringles anything apart from kind of continued publicity. Marketing has changed. So I see media as a modern and relevant subject. We learn it through a combination of practical work and theory. So I thought it would be worth it to say, if you'd have chosen A-level media and you're in year 12, what would you have done so far? What would you have learned about? Well, we start off with film marketing and industries. We study 2 films in detail, along with how they were made and how they were kind of advertised and marketing. But along with this, we learn how to edit images in Photoshop so we can make film posters. You'd have also learned about video games. We study several video games in depth. Our set text is the Assassin's Creed franchise. And I always pause here because people look at video games and the normal response is, I can't believe you study video games, because they don't realize the power of video games and how kind of commercially successful they are. So Epic Games, who make Fortnite, their revenue $5 billion in 2020. And as a lot of us know, Fortnite is free to play, but the company is still making that much money. Microsoft recently bought a game studio called Bethesda for $7.5 billion. To put it in perspective, I've added that if you can read it. Disney bought Lucasfilm, so all the rights to every Star Wars product, for $4.5 billion. So that shows you how valuable video games are going to be in the future, and they're only growing. If we look at the most successful video games of this year and last year, none of them are on a console, they're all on mobile phones. They're all on your devices. Okay, that was a video game segue. So back to what you've learned. We've just finished looking at radio and podcasts. We studied one show in depth, that's the BBC show Late Night Women's Hour. And this week we have been recording, and next week we're learning how to edit audio together so we can all make podcasts. And I have my first lesson on music videos with year 12 this week, where we look at representations specifically of gender and ethnicity that we see in different music videos. So, I mean, when you finish the course, you'll be able to understand how the media influences your life and be able to look at a media text and understand how it works. Hopefully, you'll be able to critically explore representations in the media and how the industries work. And most importantly, you'll be an aware and a critical audience. So when you see something presented through the media, you won't take it at face value, you will dive into it. We also still teach a lot of practical work. So you'll know how to use a variety of cameras. We use the Adobe software suite that everyone gets access to for the whole time they're in the sixth form. And you also create websites and we make print. So all of this is incredibly useful, no matter what you decide to go on to do. How do we do it? Well, we study every form of media. We study TV, film, radio, music video, video games, social media, advertising, newspapers, and magazines. We couple that with some theoretical study. So we study 20 or more theorists split across the key concepts of the media course. That's the media industries, how audiences react to a media text, representations we see, so how social groups are put across through the media, and how all this works through media language. In the practical element of the course, at least as a bare minimum, you will make a lot of video. You'll make a podcast segment, you'll make a music video. I think this year we're going to make Christmas music videos because it seems fun. We're going to make websites, posters, newspaper front pages, and a magazine, and that's a bare minimum. How is it assessed? 70% exam-based, 2 exams. 1 exam is a more general exam about media industries and audiences, along with some unseen texts. And another one is 3 full essay questions about set texts. Well, here's a list of some of the set texts we study. Just have a look at those, see if you recognise them. They change every couple of years to try and keep them more up to date. For example, Black Panther was introduced last year, and it's great we get to study a Marvel film. %30 of your grade is based on coursework. It's based on a brief, and you choose to make either a TV product, a music video product, magazine, or a film marketing product, which involves making posters, DVD covers, print work. I've got some examples of that. So this is one that Anna made last year. This was a film marketing brief, and just to show you the quality of the work that is produced. And this is a shot of a website that was made to accompany a music marketing campaign. So these are all skills that are highly transferable. We have access to all the Adobe software, that is Photoshop, Premiere, InDesign, Audition. So you have that for the whole time you study. Results-wise, well, it's all well and good doing the A-level, but will you get a good result if you do it? In 2019, that's the last year students sat full A-level assessment in kind of exam conditions. We got 85% A star to B and 100% A star to C, ALPS grade of 2, which puts us in the top 6% of schools nationally. The first year of CAGS, we were all learning the process. We still got 100% A star to C, again an ALPS grade of 2. And last year was the strongest cohort I've ever had doing media. We got 100% A star to B at JCG students, which is something that I'm immensely proud of. It was a lot of hard work from everyone involved, but. So what careers do you go into after doing media? Well, we have a lot of students going off to uni. Some examples: 2 students who finished a few years ago, who've just finished their degrees. One came back before COVID and got a job filming The Real Housewives of Jersey, and now works in a local production company. Georgie came back and did some work for Channel 103. And Tash is a great one to talk about because before she went off to uni, she took a gap year in Jersey and started kind of doing admin and temp work at a firm until they realized all of the media skills she had. So then they had her making websites and podcasts to help with their marketing department. So it gives you an idea that even when you come out of school after year 13, what you can do. Creative industries are the fastest growing part of the UK economy, and you can't automate creativity yet. So we have 2 minutes left, which is pretty good timing. If you have any questions, please add them into the Q&A section, and I will hopefully be able to answer them. If you don't have any questions, don't worry. And if you kind of don't feel like asking them now, you can come and ask me at school. Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone joining me. And yeah, if you've got any questions, ask me at school, or a bit of advice for everyone. If you're not sure about doing a subject, talk to people who are already doing it in year 12. Talk to your tutor, who'll put you in touch with a couple of people who won't mind answering questions, because they'll be able to tell you what it's really like. Great. Well, good luck with the rest of your evening. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me.